What's up? Come on in. All right, gentlemen. So today's video is an opportunistic video for me. Okay, you can give me some space. Today I want to talk about friends because we talk a lot about the importance of surrounding yourself with amazing people. And one of the things that you can do to basically level up your life is to get rid of some of the losers that you were hanging out with or that aren't your best, basically the best people that you should be hanging out with, because there are better options out there. Plus, if you surround yourself with great people, what are you laughing at?
Why were you gesturing at me? On the loser part.
On the loser part?
I went like this.
I said the loser. If you're hanging out with losers, what? Anyway, so here's the deal. The title is I'm going to war, because if I was going to war, who would I call? Who do I know that I could basically call up and say, you know what? I got a problem. I've got an issue. What are you laughing at?
You can't shoot a gun. I had to, this guy does not know how to use a weapon, so I'm not sure I'm going to war.
Gun? You want to talk about guns? Chicken arms?
He's got some guns.
Anyway, these two guys have been friends of mine for a long time. This guy, Will, has been a friend of mine since how long ago?
1998.
98. 98 or 99?
Close.
No, it was before then.
I don't know, 96.
See? Okay. And then Antonio, you guys all know him. And he was actually a more recent friend of mine. But both of these guys basically are people that I know that I could rely on. And they also bring tremendous value to my life. Now, they're very different than me. I mean, Antonio's a very different guy than me. Will is super different than me in terms of he's super intelligent and cerebral, and I'm just not that guy. Antonio is very down to earth and also very intelligent and intellectual. I'm not that guy, but
We read books.
I don't read books, but you know, one of the things that we'll talk about a little bit later on in this video is kind of like how kind of everything started to scale once I met Antonio. And Will is one of the only people that I'm still in contact with and friends with, and over,
20 years.
20 years. And so I just wanted to kind of hear your thoughts. First off, about like friendship and the importance of surrounding yourself with higher caliber people. Because I think back to when I left, Philadelphia, it wasn't that like I didn't like the people that I grew up with. Like, they were fine. And when you're growing up, I think it's really, you become friends because you share something similar. You share, experiences, you share a lifestyle, you share, basically the fact that you're in a class with somebody, and so you develop friendships around that. But when you go to college or you leave your friend circle from when you're little, this is when you get to pick and choose the people that you're actually going to be around. And a lot of times you're going to gravitate towards people that are more similar to you, or basically fill some different type of void or need. And so, Antonio, what's your opinion on friends and friendships?
Well, I'm thinking about all the success I've had in my life over the last 20 years in business. It's really because of the relationships, the connections. I'm not great at sales. I am not great at maybe decent at operations.
What do you do? Tell everybody what you do, first of all.
Well, I've got a YouTube channel, which, if you haven't seen it, Real Men, Real Style. But I've also got a clothing company, or I used to have a clothing company, which shut down. Now I've got a grooming company called Vitaman. I have a fragrance company called Mission Fragrances. But information marketing. But I think it was my connection with you and you pointing out, hey, you should be charging for basically promoting a business.
Yeah.
I was doing it for free at the time. And, I'm not saying the businesses were taking advantage of me, but they kind of were.
I was. And, I will say that. Yeah. I will say they were taking advantage.
But all of a sudden it became sustainable. And it wasn't. It was something you pointed out very quickly. And it was just a great relationship. It's oftentimes somebody, having a strength where you're weak and simply stating the obvious to them, which to you is not so obvious. And all of a sudden it's good relationships, also symbiotic. So it's a win-win, bad relationships, parasitic, where one person is taken from the other and it's hurting, really one of them more than the other. But
what about you, Will?
I think that...
First off,
My name's Will. I work for a large food corporation. I'm an executive, pretty high up in the company. I've had some success in my life, but not like these guys with the entrepreneurship and the YouTube channels and things like that.
But here's the deal. So let me just explain this. So in terms of, salaries and money and if you can become a successful entrepreneur and you start a business, that is one way that basically you are unlimited in terms of your earning potential. All right, it's a different route, and it's a route that most people shouldn't take, if I'm being completely honest, right? Most people are not built for entrepreneurship. That's just a fact. It takes a different kind of mindset, it takes a different stomach, it takes the willingness and the ability to keep getting punched in the face every single day by issues and getting back up and moving forward. But what most people do is they get a job, right? They go to college, they get a good job, they make a good living, and they get a nice vacation, and they have and live a nice life. Your earning potential, though, depending on what you're going into, oftentimes is limited or capped. Will, however, in terms of earning potential for what you do and having a W-2 wage, is pretty much top of the food chain. There aren't many people or many jobs that you would make more money.
That's probably right.
That is absolutely right. Will is also just...
You know, the guy was in the Navy, submariner. So that's like top of the top.
He was
anyone knows
nuclear engineer.
Yeah.
So Will was a nuclear engineer in the Navy, and so he's very modest. But the truth is, he is, the smartest guy I know. Were you perfect on your SATs?
That was not perfect. Let's move on to the friends questions.
This is what friends do. They build each other up.
Exactly.
And they talk about other people's success, and they want them to win, which is another thing I think that a lot of people have a difficult time getting their head and their hands around is, having a relationship that you care about the person and you care about their success as much as you care about their own, if not more. And so that's one of the things that really separates great friends from people that are casual acquaintances or people that really probably shouldn't be in your life. But anyway, Will was a nuclear engineer. He's got a bunch of degrees. He was a nuclear engineer on a submarine, and then he basically went to Wharton to get his degree or his master's.
Which is the top business school.
Top business school.
That's all fine. You can find me on LinkedIn, whatever. Friendship. You talked about all the cerebralness and the learning and things like. Let's go to look at the research and look at the data in psychology. Read books. All of them will say that having good social connections is maybe the most important thing you can do to have a long life and to have happiness and fulfillment. And I think all those things probably work together in concert and feed off each other. So finding good friends and good social networks is super important. And not everybody is wired for that. I'm not wired for that. I'm an introvert. I maybe have 5 friends that I rely on to build me up and to get me through the day and all the challenges that I face in life. You need to put the work in to find those connections, and if you're not wired for it, you got to build habits. And Antonio taught me that earlier today, and it was really interesting to hear. Hey, maybe I need to put some more work in on these things too.
Because just like any relationship, right? A good, marriage, a good, boyfriend-girlfriend scenario, it takes work, it takes effort, and in order to really cultivate great relationships, it takes work on both parts. If one person is putting in the time, putting in the energy, making the calls, reaching out, it doesn't work because it doesn't feel like the other person really reciprocates the love or the caring or the compassion. And so it does take work. And so the deal is, like, both of these guys are introverts. I consider myself an introvert with extroverted tendencies, but the big difference is introverts basically get charged up and fueled up by being alone or without a lot of stimulation around. Extroverts go out and they seek it because that's what really fuels them up, right? I enjoy being around people, but I also need my private time. Tell everybody, Antonio, a little bit about, one of the things is, okay, well, where do I meet people? How do I get connected to better friends? And one of the things that I noticed first thing about Antonio that blew my mind when I met him for the first time in person was how he worked the room and his ability to just go up to people and start engaging and talking and basically drawing things out of them that automatically connects them to him because he was interested. And he focused on being interested as opposed to being interesting, which I've heard mentioned before.
Yeah.
But that is like your secret weapon. It's your superpower. And so he's also, just to tell him, like, Antonio is one of, if not the greatest humans I've ever met. And it was, yeah, exactly. But he is. I mean, he's, just a great person. And so talk a little bit about what you, how you kind of go about networking and meeting and cultivating those relationships.
So I know what works for me is that I really don't need much to be happy. And it's important that you don't come towards people needing things. Because people, you think about your good friends, the people that you really like being around, they're not sponging off you, they're not taking from you. You want this non-needy network if you want to consider it in business. It's great to actually talk to somebody that's interested in you genuinely and isn't trying to angle to get something. So I learned
Good
long
point.
ago, one of the things about the Marine Corps is that they teach you to live off of less. I mean, really, we're the redheaded stepchild of the military. We get no money. And the Marines learn to appreciate and love the suck. Anyone in the Army, you kind of know what we're talking about, but seriously, we love it's just something that if you can come towards, meeting people and you don't need to, that's great that they are doing really well, that their business is making millions of bucks, or that they're a top level at, this company you want to work at. You're not going to them trying to get a job. You just simply, man, tell me about what it's like. Tell me about your story. Because the reality is most guys don't have somebody that their kids aren't usually asking them this stuff. Their wife oftentimes doesn't care or is zoned out. And for someone to actually be interested in them and their story and what they got going on, and I take pleasure. I mean, it's something I think you learn just to find people interesting. Because you think about it. In college, I studied insects. I mean, I studied a lot of things, biology.
Incest?
No, not incest. Insects. And I was amazed by the professor and her passion for these unique flies. We went down to South America to study. And I was drawn to her passion for them, not so much the insects. And I mean, she had, to this day, she still has all these stacks and she's trying to get it into the Smithsonian. But if somebody can find that much love and interest in something so obscure, I mean, think about this other human being that's just as complex as you, whose story is waiting to be untold. And so I love going into a room and looking at somebody that looks maybe pretty mundane or simple, but then you start finding out that this person lived down in South Africa, that they traveled on bike up and down throughout South America, and they've got all these crazy stories that you would have, and it's just fun. And the worst case, you come away just simply knowing more about them. And the great part about this, if you're an introvert, is you can shut up and just let them talk. You get good at being able to ask questions, and it's fun. And eventually people are like, I have talked, tell me about you. And it's kind of nice whenever all of a sudden they like you because you've listened to them and you made them feel great because they got to do what they rarely get to do, and that's talk about themselves and share things that are exciting for them. And I find it's much more memorable. The only bad side of this is sometimes you can't remember people's names, but you remember everything about them.
So best conversation starter. Do you have one?
I don't have one.
I don't know that I have one. Like a conversation starter to...
Like if you're meeting somebody, I'm not saying like pick her up and try to sleep with her. I'm saying like you see somebody, hey, whatever. How do you open?
Hey, I'm Antonio. Simply giving your name, usually get their name back. I keep it really...
Compliment. What I think works for like
the answer.
Okay. Yeah, there's
compliment.
looking for that answer.
Yeah, it's compliment. It's like a lot of times, like just like when I see somebody, I'll compliment them. Right, guys, really love getting compliments too. And when you compliment somebody, it automatically makes you like them more, and it's ready, and it makes them ready to talk to you. Honestly, so it's like for guys, it's like not like, oh, your arms are muscular and meaty or white or pasty, nothing like that, right? Nothing weird, but like. Yeah, exactly. Like, hey, I really like your glasses, or wow, your shoes are cool, or those jeans, they make your ass look amazing. Nothing like that, but just complimenting something that guys like your watch or their car, or hey, you've got great hair, or like whatever. I think it's a great way to basically break the ice, get them interested and talking, and it's a great way to kind of navigate that uncomfortable first kind of approach. So, Will,
hold on. That's a really good point. I didn't think about that, but complimenting somebody, try to compliment them on something that you're interested in. So I like boots. I like Chelsea boots, just like Aaron here. If I see somebody wearing a pair of Chelsea boots, I'll say, gosh, that's a nice pair of boots. What brand is that? Let me tell you what I'm into. And it gets into a conversation. It makes a connection, and it also achieves that compliment.
So let me ask you a question about, because you have ascended the corporate ladder. You've ascended in pretty much anything you've tried, right? Whether or not it was your scholastics or your professional career. What are some tips that you would give people in terms of being somebody that has the ability to basically connect with higher level people and still be able to come down to the level of maybe your subordinates? Or what is the process? What is the mindset? Is there a way that you kind of think about basically working the system, so to speak?
It's not about working the system. I'd say, first of all, you want to be genuine, and people see sincerity and they see people that are genuine. And if folks sniff out that maybe this is about you or getting ahead or trying to work the system, you're probably not going to get much help. When it comes to navigating a corporate or a company, an organization, you want to meet everyone where they are. I used to run a manufacturing plant, and it was my first really big leadership role, and I never even had anything like this in the Navy. All of a sudden, I'm responsible for almost 1,000 people and their safety and their well-being and their paycheck and their livelihood, and also all the things that we need to make for the company. And in that job, I learned how important it was to meet folks where they are, whether they're sweeping the floor or whether they're the folks that are reporting to you running the financials of the whole facility. I would wake up every morning and I'd get there probably an hour or two early, and I'd walk the floor and I would build that trust of people who see that I'm putting the time in and I'm interested in what they're doing. And I wouldn't ask them, are you doing a good enough job, or is the line running well? I'd ask them, how are you doing today? What challenges are you facing? Tell me about your weekend. And those are the types of things that really draw people to you, and then they want to go through a brick wall for you. And so I'd say that's been the secret.
Also, I'm going to throw one in, is doing what you say you're going to do.
Yep.
And being not only proficient at your job, but excelling where and when you can. Agreed?
Yes. And when it comes to scholastics or school or anything like that, it is about putting the time in.
Yeah.
You got to put the effort in. You have to look ahead. If everybody in the class is studying for the week, you should be studying 2 weeks out because you have the syllabus, things like that.
Yeah. Okay, so here's a question. It's a little bit of just a different question, but since I have both of you who have degrees and some advanced degrees, how important in today's world do you think it is to go to college? And what is your thoughts on that? Because there's a lot of people now with the internet and with all the different social the platforms and learning platforms. I mean, information has never been more available to anybody. And so, what do you think? What is the point, purpose, and advantage of going to school?
Well, first up, there are degrees that you want, to have a structured learning system. If you talk to a doctor and he never went to any schooling, he could be great, but I'm still going to wonder about, did he get the full breadth of everything that has to do with medicine? Lawyers, the same. Engineers, the same.
So some things need a structured degree.
But I think that what we're seeing is there's a lot more and a lot less structure out there every year. And so if you're not going to go down that path, are you willing to commit? I know up in Wisconsin where I live, always amazed at all the electricians, the plumbers, these guys that are going through trades and are not only going through school but getting paid to go through school. We have a friend, she's a welder, she's like 21 years old, she got paid to go through all this school. She graduated not only debt free, but she had money in her pocket, and now she's getting paid almost six figures as a young welder. It's definitely hard work, and I do think that there's a lot you can learn from academics, but I do think that we may have gone a little bit too far, but the pendulum's coming back. And I think a lot of colleges, especially the mid to lower level colleges, are seeing enrollments, drop. From the numbers that I've heard, but I think the trades are a great example of, hey, you can get in there and getting OJT, super important. But whenever I'm looking to hire people, I look at the degree as just simply, okay, it's a check in the box, but all this tells me is that you can show up someplace for 4 years and get a degree. But the skills, especially, as a company and things change so quickly, you need to be able to pick up and be able to learn skills. We're talking about aging earlier. When I think of somebody that's old, I think somebody unwilling to learn, somebody unwilling to, go out there and retrain themselves. To me, that's the mark of being old. If you can bend, if you can learn new things, then that, I think, is the skill that I look for, and I'm trying to teach my kids.
I think you have to look at it from two different directions. There's you look at it from the standpoint of knowledge that you gain, and you look at it from the standpoint of the pedigree or the signal that it sends that you have a certain degree. So I have an MBA from Wharton. Aaron just mentioned that. And the knowledge that I obtained at Wharton, or the University of Pennsylvania where Wharton is exactly the same as every other MBA from every other university or college in the country or anywhere else in the world. So I haven't gained any additional knowledge because I went to a top school. The pedigree I have from that degree is important. If I wanted to go work for Goldman Sachs, or if anyone wants to work for Goldman Sachs, they had better have a degree from Harvard or Wharton or Chicago or one of those places, or they're just not going to get a look. And so the degree that you invest in sends a signal, And lots of top companies in different fields, not just finance, will look at that degree and say, well, because that school has evaluated this person and they graduated, that tells me that they have the right to interview with us, because we don't have time to interview every person from every university or college.
Well, we were talking about peers and networks. And I mean, if you look at your peers at work and where they're at in general, if they're not, at a high level company, what, they're in jail? No, I'm just kidding.
That's my friends.
Or a former president.
Or a former, exactly.
Or a former president.
Yeah.
Exactly. But I think that's interesting. For me, it was college was just simply, it was something. Granted, we all grew up in a different time than now, right? There wasn't really the internet, or it was just coming out, and it really wasn't what it is now, obviously. And so for me, it was simply, I knew I wanted to own a gym. And I felt like I needed to. And so it was something I just wanted to get in and out as quickly as possible so that I could get on with it. And it's interesting though, because a lot of people start college and a lot of people don't finish college, right? Because they can't handle the responsibility of being on their own or whatever it is. And if that's you, and if it's not right for you, maybe you should just get a job like now and wait, because there's nothing wrong with taking your time. And I think really, truly, like even if your parents are willing to pay for it, you've just got to be honest with yourself. Is it something that you're interested in or you're going to put your effort into? Because if you're not, then don't waste the money, because it is incredibly expensive. Mm-hmm. The other thing I'd just like to mention is there are things that you can do sort of auxiliary to going to get some type of formal education now more than ever, right? It's never been easier to become, an entrepreneur or to learn the skill set that you need through other people that have done it. Entrepreneurship is kind of now like taking a test with a book open, right? All you need to do truly is find somebody that is doing or has done what you want to do, learn from them, and then replicate what they've done, and then learn and skill, and the skills that you learn through these different protocols or these different platforms, the skills stack on top of each other. And so if you're young right now and you're like 18, 16, 15, that's the thing with the internet. It has totally changed the game. Gone are the days of needing a ton of cash to start a business. Gone are the days of needing a huge network, right? If you've got an internet connection and an idea and a good work ethic, you can make anything possible. But the one thing I'd like to mention is that you need to surround yourself with people that are moving in the right direction. And if you're hanging out with losers, unfortunately, if you're hanging out with losers, they are simply going to hold you back and hold you down. Any final words to the gentlemen and ladies that are watching this channel in terms of business, success, or life? Will?
It depends on your goals. If you want to be like one of these guys, maybe it's not as important that you get a degree from a certain place, but it is important that you get the connections and you get the knowledge that you need. If you want to take my path and work for, top companies and things like that, you probably need to invest in the right degree and the right network of people to move you along.
Antonio?
I'm going to bring it back to friendship. I was thinking about this, one thing that I think when you have good friends, they're willing to take a punch for you. They're willing to actually take a step back. I'm thinking the people that I stand up for are ones that I will stand up for in the sense of I'll take a hit for. Maybe I'm not going to die for them, but it is something that I will take a loss. And if you have people like that in your life, take care of them. Reconnect with them. It's a lot easier to reconnect with old good friends than it is to try to go out there and find new ones. So if you find that, hey, I've only got like one or two people that I can call, I highly advise you reach out maybe to some old college buddies. They'd probably love to hear from you. Some friends maybe from the military, they would love to stay in contact. Now you're going to probably have to do a little bit more work. I have a friend that Jordan, he texts people every single morning, like 5 people, just asking them how they're doing. He's made a habit of that. If you can just do that like one person a day, that's 30 texts you're going to send out a month. Practice it with your family, but all of a sudden you're going to practice, you're going to strengthen that muscle of building those connections, because having people that will stand in front of you when people are, insulting you or throwing stuff your way, that right there is just really made the difference in my life.
Yep, I agree. Gentlemen, you rock. Gentlemen, thank you for being my friend. I love you guys. And you can see they love me too. You guys are assholes. Bye.